My name is Trevor Brown, and this is the Choose Your Own Adventure game. Funny story, if you look in the bottom left, the CYOAD in parentheses, that was supposed to be CYOAG, but at some point I typed a D instead of a G, and it just kind of stuck, and I never noticed, so now it's CYOAD. Anyway, the goals of my game were to create an interactive story that you can get lost in, just like any RPG. I wanted you to be able to create a story and create a world where the character could get lost in it, and I thought that was a good idea. And then my other thing was to add randomness to enhance my story. So like in each skill check function, there's you roll a six-sided die and it adds to the number to help you reach the threshold. And I thought that was a cool idea so that you might not pass every single check, but if you roll high enough, it will definitely help. So how to play it? The game is fully text-based. So once you run the function, the command prompt, like just a bunch of words pop into the command prompt and tell you what's going on. So the first thing that happens is it tells you your starting stats are all 0, you have 0 gold and 100 HP, and then it'll tell you to press any button to continue, it'll ask you to increase your stats and ask you your name and then give you some exposition. So it walks you through the game, tells you what's going on and everything, but I did want it to be fully text-based because I just wanted it to be like those games we played as a kid in those books where like you'd read and then you'd make a choice and then you'd go on to another page. I kind of wanted it to be like that, and so that's why I made it fully text-based. And so yeah, once you pass the exposition part, it'll put you onto your own, and it'll give you some choices like going to the woodcutter or the tavern. And then once you go there, you have choices to make, and that's what progresses the story. And so I liked those things, and that's exactly how you play. It just gives you options, and you choose. The first problem I was having was once I was like, you were getting through all the exposition of the story, you choose like woodcutter, tavern, or shop, as you can see. And once you chose one of those locations, you weren't able to choose woodcutter, tavern, or shop again. So it wouldn't bring you back up to the location chooser. And so the thing I had to do, like I had a reset before, but I had to add another function around that where it says where or while you don't have beer or you don't have charcoal and you're not dead, you're allowed to restart the function. Now, if you have beer and charcoal, which are the things your dad tells you to get, it brings you to the end of the game where you go back to him and you bring those items to him. But and also, if you die at any point, like if you try and steal from somebody and they, I don't know, knock you unconscious, then you are also not allowed to restart, and it brings you to the ending or the death ending. And the other problem I had was you were able to die at one point, and it would just let you to continue. Like you'd be negative HP, and then you'd be able to go back to the woodcutter and try and rob him again. And that's obviously an issue because if you're dead, you shouldn't be walking around. So if you look, it says while you don't have beer or you don't have charcoal and you're not dead. It was like I read that as how like if you don't have beer or charcoal and you're not dead, continue. But for some reason, you need the parentheses around beer and charcoal as one unit and you're not dead for the game to realize that being dead actually matters. Because before, you could switch dead to being false, and then the game would just allow you to continue even though it's like you're now dead. Or sorry, if you switch dead to being true, it'll allow you to continue. And so I had to put parentheses around it, and then that ended up fixing it. So how does it work? There's 3 skill check functions. There's one for strength, charisma, and agility, and the only difference between all 3 of those functions is literally the word strength, charisma, and agility. Each of them is just for their own stat, and so each one has a die roll of 6, and the die roll of 6 adds on to your stat to increase it to help you succeed or fail based on the threshold that's for each challenge. And then the location function, literally, it's just like you choose woodcutter, shop, tavern, clear, restart, clear, just clears all the words, restart, kills you, and restarts the game. But for the woodcutter, tavern, and shop, they're each their own functions because whenever I was trying to solve the problems, the professor was helping me, and there was so much words in the middle that it was really hard to see where it was messing up. And so she recommended we put it into functions to just clear up space and make it to where whenever we were trying to find problems, there was just less stuff in the middle. And so we did that, and it made it so much easier to solve problems. Secret word for the Easter egg. I'll leave that on the screen for a couple seconds. So the favorite thing that I did though, that I really liked, was I made it to where you couldn't steal from the woodcutter multiple times. So has gold equaling to false, and then whenever you successfully, like if you look at the success after this agility challenge, it says has gold equals to true, and then because of that, if you go look to the top, it says if you don't have gold, you're good to do it, but if you do, then it displays you already have the gold. You can't do this. And I did like that because I thought, well, if your dad is telling you this guy owes you money, then how are you going to steal from him multiple times? Because if he had the money for you to do that, he would have just paid your dad. And so I thought I should probably have him only be able to be stolen from once. And so for each now, if you succeed for each of the like choices you have, it'll always display you've already collected the gold. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was a good thing to add. And that was the favorite thing I did. So you can see there's multiple endings. They're all based on how well you help your dad make the sword. So once you bring in the beer and charcoal, it'll give you a couple of skill checks from each stat. And then based on how well you do on each skill check, it'll like tell you your ending. If you look at the last one, it's -1, which is not technically possible unless you restart the game. I just wanted there to be a different ending for if you restart, because obviously you never got here and so on and so forth. Before I go into future editions, I do want to show the game. Is this okay? So like I was saying, you just run the function and then it tells you your starting stats all 0. You have 0 gold, 100 HP. Press any key to continue. And then it'll ask you to make your character. I like making agility charisma characters. So I'm going to put 3 points in agility, actually 4 points in agility, and 1 point in charisma. So 4 agility, 1 charisma. My character's name, just my name. Press any key to continue. This is the exposition. You were born in 15th century. You can read this if you want. I've read it 100 times, so I'm just going to pass it up. And then there's so much words in the way, so the first thing I'm going to do is clear. Clears all the text from before. It tells me I have 0 gold. And then I'm going to go to the woodcutter, because I know he owes me money. So I'm going to steal it with my agility. I have pretty high agility. Easily passed. As I said earlier, though, like you can't steal from him multiple times. So let's say I go back to the woodcutter, try and steal the money again. Oh, you have already collected the gold from the woodcutter. That's fair, I have. So I'll clear it again. I'm going to go to the shop, see if I can... I know I need more money, so I'm just going to try and steal a little bit more. Now I'm at 10 gold. Let's go back to the shop. Let's buy a charisma potion. Let's actually buy 2. I want to increase my charisma a little bit so I can lower the prices of everything. I'm kind of poor now again, though, so let's go back to the shop, steal from him a couple more times. I left this in as a little bit, like... I didn't want the game to be too hard. I know it's not, like, balanced very well, but I didn't want it to be too hard. So I left this in. If you have high enough agility, I mean, I could technically still fail, and if I fail, I'll lose HP, but, you know, I do have a high stat, so it would be hard to fail. Now that I have 9 gold, I think I would like to just go to the tavern. Let's... Oh, I typed in tavern wrong. Huh. Tavern. Let's talk to the barmaid, buy the beer. That's 5 gold. Easy. And then, oh, I should have just done the charisma check. I increased my charisma. Whatever. And I'll go to the shop and just buy the charcoal. Now that you see I have both of those, I've acquired the beer for your father. You have beer and charcoal. You can return home and help your father make the sword. So press any key to continue. The first one's the strength challenge. I rolled a 5, which is really high, but I still fail because my character was really weak. That's fine. I do get a high charisma roll too. I get a 5 plus 3. I pass the threshold of 6. So I exceed. I help my father. And then high agility. I assumed this would be the one I would only pass, but I passed the charisma too. So I got 2, which means I get the good ending. Thank you, son. We made an amazing sword that I'm sure our Lord will be proud of. And that's the good ending. The game's not crazy long if you know what you're doing, but there is a lot more options that, you know, I don't really have the time to go over. But if you want to play it, it's really fun, I think, at least. My future additions that I would like to add, though, presented at the end. The future additions I would like to add, though, is I did want to add, like, based on how well you made the sword, that helps you do better in this tournament fight that you were going to do after. I would also like to change the endings. I didn't want the endings to be based on the sword, but that's what I ended up, like, that would be a lot more work to add the tournament and everything, because that would just be double of the game I've already created. But so I did want more endings based on how well you did in the tournament, and that's where I actually wanted the game to go, but it's fine here. And then I did want to create dialogue that you would choose, but I'm not really a writer, and so I didn't want to have the worst dialogue created by man, so... But those are the things I would like to do if I had more time or somebody that could actually write well. Thank you so much for coming.